We're back, Schultzy. It's the 200 Cops, mate. We're getting close to the middle of March, and I'm in Lithgow. How are you, mate?
Mate, I am great. Mate, the fact is also, you got to remember that in, 6 days' time, this is 2 years now this podcast's been running.
Yeah,
So,
geez, there you go.
okay. So
Yeah.
people obviously like to listen to us. I don't know why.
Either
But
that or the numbers are wrong, but yeah, no, that's good, mate. Well good for that. But, yeah, it was St Paddy's Day 2024. That's it. I remember it. Yeah. But mate,
yeah,
a good night tonight. This is something that's been a lot of interest in, and we've spoken about this topic quite a bit, but not as the people involved in the actual topic, but using the resource quite a bit. Do you want to introduce tonight's guest, mate?
yes, mate. I'd like to introduce David Raymond. He's a Queensland copper, or retired now. Yeah, work mostly up in the North End. Mate, and he was a dog handler. So what we've got tonight is I think, some really information and expert opinions on when it comes to dogs. You don't spend that amount of time in the police working with dogs and not know, what's going on. So, mate, David, how
Very
are you?
good, thanks, boys. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good to have you on board.
Love the show.
It's
Mate,
it's funny.
love the show.
Oh, that's good. No, glad to hear. We're just two blokes who just talk story. That's all it is, really. But what I'm really loving tonight is we've got not just a dog handler, but someone who's done it for a very long period of time. Queensland's known for their dog handling, and the dog squad is well regarded all around the country. And what I'm thinking is that we've had so many people ask about dog handling, and we've even spoken about our experience with dog handlers in the past. I had quite a bit to do with dogs in Darwin, and so we're really interested. But mate, if you wanted to just start off, tell us about your career, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I did sworn in 1989, 36 years as a Queensland police officer. Funny thing, when I got sworn into the police, my first post was in Cairns, and I managed to stay here the whole time. So I did 36 years as a copper, and then 26 as a police dog handler, which is absolutely the best career I had. And obviously, I don't know what it's the same around the state, but around the country. But you have to retire when you're 60 within the QPS. So that's what brought me undone. Although I think I slowed down a couple of years before that because the body didn't want to keep chasing dogs over fences and stuff like that. So it knocked me out a bit. But it's funny. And when we talk about joining the police, I joined from Townsville. I was a Townsville boy. And when I went, this is how things have changed, because when I went in to join, I passed the test, passed the interview, and then I went for the medical, and I had to expand my chest to 95 centimetres, something I couldn't do, and so I got knocked back. Can you believe it in this day and age? Yeah, that actually was the rule, that you couldn't expand your chest to 95 centimetres. Plus my height was disproportionate to my weight. I was 59 kilos and I was 180 centimetres, so I was not exactly a massive big fella. I was Mr. Puniverse, so to speak, and I just couldn't get my chest that big. So I just can't imagine that happening these days, especially when some of the people have trouble reaching the pedals of the car. But that's another point. So I sworn in, transferred immediately to Cairns. From there, I just played straight to general duties. Absolutely loved general duties. But wore me down a little bit towards the end. But I was in the CERT team, or what they called back then was the tactical response group. So a little bit of tactical experience. We had back in those days when they brought in CERT, they had in Cairns. They had places in. They had units stationed in Brisbane, Rockhampton, Townsville, and Cairns. And they had 7 full-time blokes and then 14 part-time. I went as a part-time bloke, so I got a little bit of experience there. And I look back on those days and I realised just how more experienced and how good professional the CERT team are today compared to what we were back then. As I say, I only did part-time, but it was a great time. When they decided to disband Townsville Rockhampton CERT team, and they were going to take the whole of Cairns and Brisbane full-time, all the members full-time, I had a decision then to make, and my ambition was to join the dog squad. So I went down to see the OIC back here, and of course the usual selection process, put your resume in, and all that type of stuff, which was a load of crap back then. It was jobs for the boys, and I picked up a job, so it was good back then. But obviously, had to be fit, love of dogs, and just a good work ethic, which I was lucky to fill all those spots. So I ended up, basically getting the dog squad, and that was in 1999. So I went right through to 2025 and retired as a dog handler. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So literally 26 years, really, as a dog handler in Cairns.
Yeah, and as I say, it's not unusual for dog handlers to at 2:00 in the morning. There's a dump stolen car, or there's a break and enter, and you have to go for a 5K run at 5:00. 2:00 in the morning. A 5K run, and you over fences, through creeks, stuff like that. So I think that's what got me in the end. That just I'm glad I retired. They talk about wanting to retire as you get, they want to put the retirement age up a little bit, but I'm running. That's all right if you're sitting in an office and doing that type of stuff, but when you're a dog handler, it's hard. And it's very difficult to come back from being a dog handler back onto mainstream, doing your DVs, doing your bloody, your break and enters, doing your traffic accidents. When all you're doing is you're just an adrenaline junkie, just want to get there and catch people, and that's what we did.
Yeah. So, sorry, Schultzy, you go, mate.
Yeah, mate. Sorry, Dave, you got a bit of background noise there. I'll try and limit that out when we actually do it. But mate, yeah, what year did you join?
The police or the dog squad?
The
police. Coppers 1989. 89 I joined. Yeah. I tried 3 times before that, but as I say, I keep getting knocked back with the size and weight.
Yeah, the 95 centimetre thing's weird. Like I don't understand. There must have been some medical thing at the time that you had to have a certain size.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it? Yeah. But had to expand from it. I couldn't get 5 centimetre chest expansion. Anyway, yeah, right. It's my chest has fallen now. It's right down here now. And I can get 95 centimetres of that. Trust me. Anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't struggle one bit. But yeah, there you go. So what I love about the dog handling, a lot of people would have a very basic understanding that dogs called out to a job, they run up to someone, they bite them. Can you give us a bit of a technical description about the fact that, I know that that's not the case, can you give us a rundown just for the people who wouldn't have a clue, exactly the capabilities, and obviously what you can share, the capabilities of a police, like a general purpose police dog?
They're massive. You as a use of force is probably the best explanation to start at. That as soon as the dog handler turns up, shit just got real, if I can say that, if you know what I mean. So you can have 4 or 5 coppers there, and that dog turns up, the dog starts barking in the back, and a lot of people tend to go, well, I'm not going to wrestle this bloke, I'm going to stand back. Stuff like that. So that's probably one of the main things. We probably use that a lot more than what people think. We don't actually use it as a use of force, but turning up to a job, it just instantly becomes a use of force, as coppers do, and that's why we have presence as one of a use of force. When police turn up, that's a use of force. People either tone down or they get more angry or whatever. Same with the police dog when they get in there. But our main role was tracking, obviously, tracking offenders. So somebody would commit an offence, and I'll go on with a little bit more in a second. If they commit an offence, we'd get the dog out, obviously, and they'd take the last human scent to leave the scene, and they'd track from there. So there is something called scent discrimination, and that's mostly used in the USA, and even for tracking it as a bit of fun, as a bit of sport. They put an article down, whether that's a shirt or a hat or something like that, and the dog will pick up that scent and follow it on the line. But not very often do offenders leave their scent, a scent article around there for us to try and track. So we use the last human scent to take off. Generally speaking, once that dog picks up on that scent, it stays on that scent. So you can have cross tracks and people crossing and stuff like that, and the dog will just keep going in one scent. And you can go for 3, 4, 5 kilometres through rainforest, which you do a lot up here, across bitumen roads, through buildings, stuff like that, and the dog will just keep on that scent till it gets to either they locate the person or the person's jumped into a vehicle, or I've got a million excuses I can give for my dog not finding people. But so that's the thing. But it's not just offenders either. A big thing we don't get credit for is the amount of people that we find that want to commit suicide and hurt themselves. I have found hundreds of people, I would suggest, over the years that wanted to They'd fall on hard times, decided that was it, and run off into the bush. And in fact, on 3 occasions, I've located people giving CPR and brought them back, actually hanging, and brought them back because of the dog. Two particular cases. One, I turned up to a house where a bloke had run off from the house, wanted to kill himself. Mum had said, he's gone left. I took the dog out. The dog wanted to go right, and I'm thinking, what do I do, what do I do? I went right with the dog, I said, because the old instructor in the back of my head going, trust in your dog. So I trusted the dog, and we found him about, I suppose, it was only about half a kilometre away, maybe 750 metres away, and he was hanging on in a playground there, and we managed to cut him down and bring him back. So, there's stories like that that are just amazing these dogs do.
Yeah, so that's something I wouldn't have thought of. I've obviously had a fair bit of experience working with the dogs, but I've never thought of that. Like, I've never come across people, imminently committing suicide that you've come across and been able to bring them back, because we've found people hanging, but there was no bringing them back. So
and also, just speaking of that, how difficult it is even with CPR bringing some people back, but we've managed to do it on 2 occasions. That's happened to me. Another bloke decided he was going to. A bit of a funny story though. He decided he's going to kill himself in the cemetery, one of the local cemeteries here, and he strung himself up. And just as I'm getting the dog out to go and track, a bloke comes over and says, "Oh mate, you're looking at the itinerants." I said, "No, I'm actually doing something else." "Oh yeah." Old mate in there, he's seen me turn up, and he's gone, "Okay, I'm going to do it." So he's done it, not realising this bloke was going to have a conversation with the next 2 minutes. And here I am chatting away, and poor mate stops, he's hanging there swinging, and I'm chatting away. I thought, I better go and get this job done. And so he didn't time it very well, but we managed to bring him back as well, which was great. Yeah, so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know of a case in Darwin where it wasn't so much that, it was a missing person. It was a lady with dementia, and it was a pretty good story. So I obviously had some understanding of GP dog abilities, but a lot of what we used was offenders. But the footage from the handler, who's a good mate, I know him quite well, he the dog came across, and we knew this dog, and it was a land shark of note.
Yep.
And it came across this lady and just basically sat and started barking, and never hurt a thing, never harmed her in any way. And I just found that fascinating. So can you explain how, obviously there's a lot of training involved, and I wouldn't mind talking about that as well, but can you explain how a dog knows the difference between someone whose calf muscle needs removing and someone who just needs to be found?
Going back, when I joined in 1999, when you got your position within the dog squad, they'd say, "There's your new uniform, there's your new belt, go and find yourself a dog." So we had to ring up around town. We put articles in the paper asking for anybody who's got a dog that likes to jump fences, wants to play games, wants to chase shit. We want that dog, and somebody donate the dog. So that's how it worked out. These donated dogs, and they tend to be a little bit bitey on the thing. Mind you, when I did join, and just about 90% of the people that we found got bitten, because that was just the way it was. If the dog if you didn't give yourself up, you were going to get bitten. Keep in mind that we did find them in bushes and places where we couldn't get to them, and we wanted to make sure that we were safe. So most people got bitten there. And going back towards the back end of my career, I probably had 5 bites in the last 5 years. I'd probably had, I reckon, 25, 30 bites in my first year, and the last 5 years I probably had 5. It just wasn't, not worth it. Cameras around and stuff like that. Not to say we ever did anything illegal, but it was just a matter of, you just had to justify everything you're doing. And fair enough too, there's nothing wrong with that. Another job I did, one of the last jobs I did, if I just go back to training very quickly. So what happens from there is a person will run a track for us. So they'll get the dog, they'll get a toy out and they'll shake the toy in front of the dog's face, or food, one of the two, and they'll run it 20 metres away, put the toy down, run back, and you put the dog out basically to follow that little track. You can see at this stage, and the dog will race out, pick it up and bring it back, the toy. It's all toy driven or food driven, depending on what's going on. So let's say it's toy driven, and then that goes a little bit further, then you put it over the top of the hill, so the dog understands that there's a toy at the end of the thing. So all of a sudden the dog can't see, So he starts using his other main scent, which is his nose. So he starts tracking that and finds a toy. So, and then it goes on, 2, 3, 4, 5 Ks, and at the end of the thing, there's a person there with either the arm, which is the toy, or the little toy the dog gets to hold and stuff like that. Towards the back end of my career, I had one job where my dog was tracking along, and he was very subtle in his indications. So he's a stolen car, tracked through a old people's home, come to the end of the old people's home, he's ducked into the bush, and then comes straight back out and off he goes again. And it's really problem solving here, because I went, I reckon there's somebody in there. So I came back and I found somebody in there. But what happened is she didn't give that dog the toy within a second, if you know what I mean. So that dog goes, where's my toy? No, okay, I'm going, got to go further. You know what I mean? So that mustn't be my offender. So the dog's just driven with the toy. And in that case, the dog didn't bite because the person didn't have anything there that the dog wanted to do. So it's just a matter, and that was my issue, because I didn't train the dog in different things, different scenarios. So a lesson learned. So does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it does. And I understand the reward. It's all the positive reinforcement and the reward process. Yep. Can you go through the selection? Sorry, you go, Schultzy.
Yeah, mate. Look, it's one thing I've noticed, Dave, was the fact is, especially a lot of the drug dogs. Now, we saw quite a few of them retired afterwards, and of course, police take them on and all that sort of thing in their retirement. But I still remember one scenario where this dog just would not let go of the toy. It finally got its toy, and it just wouldn't. It would sleep with it in its mouth and all that sort of thing. Can you just elaborate a bit more on their thinking? Obviously, it spent its whole life trying to find this toy.
Exactly, yeah. So they're really keen. And that's a toy-driven dog, which is what we want. We want something that's going to chase, and love that toy. But what it's really designed for is that toy comes out for training, and then it goes away. So the dog stays nice and keen. Same reason we kennel the dogs. We put the dogs in the kennel. When they come out, if we just had an ordinary dog that sat around the house all afternoon and stuff like that, we could go and catch a murderer. He might just go, I like the palm tree, I can sit under that. If you know what I mean. So we've got to keep them keen. Same with that toy. That toy's got to be it's reward. And wow, I'm getting this. I know if I do this type of thing, I'm going to get that toy. And the dog doesn't know when it comes out. We obviously teach them to go to the toilet. So we say, be quick, off to go. They go and have a piss and come back and hop in the back of the car or whatever they want to do. So the dog doesn't know what it's going to get out for, whether it's going to be to go to the toilet or whether it's going to go and catch a murderer. It doesn't know any difference. It just knows if it does as it's told, it's going to get rewarded. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, the training process, obviously, a lot of training, but not just the dog, the handler itself. Do you want to actually go through the training that you need to do to actually handle
probably
dogs?
The handler more so than the dog to a certain degree. There's a lot of problem solving with, you see the dog doing something. And keep in mind, I had 5 dogs throughout my career. And every dog was so different, and it was really difficult getting in them. I wrote a book just recently called Vader, and I had Vader as one of my dogs. And I didn't catch anywhere for 3 months when I got him. I was just about ready to give him up. And what I actually did was I got another novice handler, somebody who he was just training with the dog squad. I said, mate, run a track with this dog, having no idea what the dog would run like, and off he went. And then I watched him as he did it, and I realised then that I was doing everything wrong. I was trying to track with this dog like it was my first one, you know what I mean? And this dog, the first dog tracked really slowly and methodically and along the thing, but this dog just tracked 1,000,000 miles an hour and was spot on every single time. So I just had to speed up and stuff like that. So I can't remember what the question was now.
No, you're onto it anyway. It's basically, what was the training for a dog handler? So if you've gone through the process and all the rest of it, and we'll probably talk more about that in a minute, where we talk about if you're in the police force or you want to join the police and be a dog handler, how do you do that? But what's that initial training for a dog handler? Like, oh, congratulations, you got the spot. Now where to?
Yeah, now or in 1999. 99 was a bit fun, I can tell you, because it was... go
1999. That's the year I finished high school. Let's do that one.
Yeah. I was probably drunk. Anyway, it was. We had great camaraderie. Is massive in the dog squad, of course. So it was really good. we worked pretty hard with training these dogs, and we had some hard dogs, like really, really hard dogs. So the process obviously was, when you are doing, you know, you might do 2 or 3 tracks a night, and then you get to an end of a 4K track as anyone wants to blue with you, fight with you. So physical fitness is probably one of the main things that you want to do. Plus a lot of adrenaline. You got to have a lot of adrenaline, you know, that you want to chase that, chase down the baddies. We used to have this sign in our wall. 2 stories here. We used to have a sign in our wall that said, it had a fence there, and then it had, from workplace health and safety, do you really need to jump this fence to catch that crook? Is it really that important? And I'm thinking, of course it is, you know, I mean, it's crazy. And then we had this operation, situation use of force model. Have you boys in the Northern Territory would have that. Copper in the middle, pie chart, got all these thingos you can use to use if you need to do the thingo. And I walked into my office one day and I said to the boys, I said, righto, I said, take a withdrawal, which is one of the use of forces. If you think it's too dangerous, you get the fuck out of it, you know, quick as you can. And I went, all right, boys, take a withdrawal, not on air. We don't withdraw, you know. A week later, I went down to a siege, and a bloke runs out with a firearm. It was a nail gun, and he's firing these nail guns off, and I'm standing at the front entrance. I negotiated with him, and I've just fucking run for my life as fast as I could, you know, as quick as I could. And one of the other dog handlers actually sent his dog in and took him out, which was good. I drove straight back to the station and went, okay, back in. Let's put it back in now.
So, to answer your immediate question, have we ever seen the one? Yeah, we have, because we stole it directly from the Queensland Police Service. So, yeah, I've seen it.
And just for your information, I sold it to you. Joking. No.
There we go. Yeah. 2007, we used your product.
Oh, good, yeah. It's not a bad model, actually. It's a good idea. It basically explains it. And I was the first to present that because when we took it on, which was, probably 1996, before I was a doggy, maybe even before that, they sent a Holy Coppers down to learn this new use of force model and that type. And I was one of the initial ones to bring it up, and I put 200 coppers through it up here. So I was one of the training officers for that back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. I loved it because it's funny that the tactical withdrawal. I remember as tough new recruits, you know, 23 years old and thinking we're bulletproof. Oh, you never back off, would you? Why would you ever back off? And then, you back off. And a lot of the time, it wasn't always necessarily run away for self-preservation. That was there. It was also pull back because the result here is going to be a lethal use of force.
Exactly.
Other options.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So just back to the training. So there'd be obviously the track training, and probably the one synonymous with the dog squad is the bite work, which was and back in my day, back in 1999, we had sleeve, but it was very, very. You'd come back and you'd have puncture wounds right through your arms where the dog, get through. Nowadays, with the workplace health and safety, and rightly so too, it's a lot safer. They've got bite bars and stuff like that. But going back in the old days, and so we used to do the bite work, and obviously you're going to get bitten. I've had quite a number of stitches over the years from different dogs and stuff like that. But and you'd put those through scenarios as well. You'd do bite work into cars. You do bite work at heights upstairs, on the water. You jump out of helicopters and stuff like that. So it was. So there's a whole heap of stuff there with the bite work. So you got tracking, you got your bite work. We used to do building searches, of course, where if we thought that somebody was inside a building, a recent break and enter, we could send the dog in there to do a methodical search right throughout the building. If they located, they'd sit and bark, and that'd give us an opportunity to go forward and capture whoever it is, apprehend whoever it is in there. If they were out in the open, the dog would go straight in and bite because that's how we trained. But if they weren't, say they're hiding in a cupboard or something, the dog would bark, and we'd be able to go forward then and call them out under whether especially if they were hidden behind there, probably under firearm, just to make sure that we were pretty safe. Or we'd send the dog in to drag them out. So they had the choice. Generally speaking, they gave themselves up and had a dog barking. And basic obedience, obviously, was something, and that's probably your groundwork for all your work. Once you've got your dog obedient, you can start cruising through other stuff. We also used to do article searches. They don't do these days. So article searches, they'd send a dog into an area. It might be an area 400 metres square to locate articles that have been recently dropped. And that may be, in fact, I had one case where I sent a dog into an article search. I bloke at a rape incident, sexual assault. Old mate swore he wasn't there. We sent the dog in. The dog's located a Coke can, which was touched by him. So anything's touched by the human, the dog will pick up. So it can be anything in there, but as soon as they touch it, the dog knows to search for that. And the dog's brought back the Coke can. That Coke can was sent down, come back with fingerprints on it to say that he was there. So so that's the article search. The dog will just search methodically through the thingo and bring back the article that's human sent on it. And the way we teach that is we just get a quadrant. We just walk a big quadrant, and then we divide that quadrant into 4, and then we divide into 8, and then we just go and hide different articles into each quadrant. Might be usually one leather, one metal, and one wood timber, and then we just go and teach the dog to go in there and find as soon as it's indicated, go, good dog, that type of stuff, and then it understands it's going to get a reward and picked up anything with human scent on it.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating. I've never had a lot to do with the training side of things. I've had a lot to do with the operational side of dogs. Earlier on, especially, both Schultzy and I had a lot to do with drug detection dogs. Labradors, just placid, very friendly dogs. They certainly weren't doing bite work. And there was an element of, you can give them a pat, but we don't overly be affectionate. We're not their handler. We're not they're a working dog. They're not a pet. We're not there to play with their heads and all the rest of it. But I just found it amazing, their capabilities. I couldn't believe how good they were at finding things.
We had a job fairly recently, the last couple of years, that was on the tablelands up here. And what's happened was there was intel that there were firearms up here. One of my staff, fantastic worker, he took his dog up there because obviously the detection dogs in Queensland do obviously all your drugs, cash, sperm for rape scenes. They do blood detection, they do cadaver work, and the new one is the tech dogs. So they search for mobile phones or USB sticks because a lot of the child exploitation material is stored on those and hidden away. So they do that type of stuff. Just going back to this story, it was a firearms detection, sent the dog up. The dog went through the house, couldn't find anything. They decided to go. It was on acreage property, fairly large rural property. The dog went out to search the shed, which was probably 200 metres away. The dog has run across this hay bale, bit of hay on the ground, and it's indicated there. And they've taken the hay bales away, and there's a shipping container that's hidden underneath the ground, absolutely full of ammunition and firearms, just massive. It's like, I would suggest, I've got photos there, which I have to send to you boys to have a look at, but I would say there'd be probably 50 firearms in there, just hidden away. And it's just pure luck. The dog's gone, he's gone out to go to the shed and just come across that area. But and in hindsight, it's probably there's a fair bit of scent there. There's a whole plume of scent. Just a bit of stroke of luck that he actually went that way. The dog was able to pick it up and pull those firearms off the street.
Yeah. David, you just reminded me of a story, and I remember we did quite a few roadblocks back in the day, especially with drugs. And one of the scenarios was, I suppose, real life job. But we got the people out of the car, and what we do is we get the dog then out to search the people and then the car. And the dog got out, and it's going to the people. People were probably about, 15 metres behind the car or whatever. As the dog was going past the back of the car, probably about 10 metres away, he turned around and looked, and the dog handler goes, no, go over the people first, and then, go through. So they've gone through, he sat on one of the people, and then was concentrated on the car. So we went over and opened up the boot where the dog was indicating and opened it up. Anyway, the dog sniffed around in a certain part. And I remember I actually searched the car and I reached down and it was down the side of the car. So it was in the bodywork. And within a clip-steel bag was money. There was no drugs. That's what it was after, cannabis. But because the money had been handled around drugs, it actually picked that up from 10 metres behind the
Yep.
car. I was just
Yeah.
amazed about how good their scent is.
The cash dogs that we use at the airports, they're designed to pick up large amounts of cash. You know what I mean? So in that case, now whether the dog's trained in cash or whether it's trained in drugs, if that has been around drugs, then there's a big chance that there's scent sitting on those that cash. But also, if it's a large amount of cash and it's a cash detection dog, it's probably picked up the scent of such a huge amount of cash. That's how they, people go and take $100 away. It's not going to affect that. And the way we train with that is we used to use the Mint, the Royal Australian Mint, who would send up shredded money and send it to us so we could use it, and big bulks of it. So the dog wouldn't hit on little bits. The dogs will hit on a pill. There's no doubt about that. And they'll also hit on 5 kilos of drugs. But when it comes to cash, they generally hit on the big quantities.
Yeah, I found that the use has obviously expanded. So obviously you're a few years before we even looked at dealing with dogs. Dogs were around when we joined. GP dogs were very limited in the NT early in our career, but obviously that expanded as the years went on, and towards the end of my career before COVID, I had quite a bit to do with the GP dogs. But I loved what you said about presence, because that goes way back before I was even a copper. I remember being in Toowoomba, working in nightclubs, and just standing out the front and seeing the police turn up, just doing their thing and walking around the streets, and it'd just be uniformed coppers walking around, and walk over to talk to them, and then you'd hear, whoa, 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 the whole van would start vibrating and all the rest of it. You just go, oh my God, make sure that thing doesn't get out. But some of the times I remember, obviously I've been involved in police dog apprehensions quite a few times, and one of my favourite ones was not so much one of the apprehensions, it was me not being apprehended, which I was really happy about, in the Todd River in Alice Springs, and we were chasing some kids, and we just heard the police dog freeze, and we all knew that if they said that, we don't move either, so we all stopped. And it was a hot night, and I just remember hearing the breath and the impact running in the sand and it's coming behind me. He's chasing the offender who's running away from us, and we're standing still. And I remember closing my eyes going, I'm about to have my limbs torn off. Yeah. Flew past me, and I felt the wind off the dog. And then within about 15 seconds, I heard growling and screaming, and I knew that we had our boy. It was as a at that stage I was doing general duties in Alice at that point, and then went across to the crime team, but I was in general duties at the time, and I'm good at the end of a run. I can hold someone down and whack the cuffs on and give them a biff if it needs to happen and all the rest of it, but I'm not the best at running them down. And by this stage I was certainly a bit older. I wasn't in my early 20s anymore, and the capability of that dog was incredible, but we didn't want to get near it even when the handler was coming through.
And that's the thing now, when we were chasing offenders, we'd have to be on the long line. We very rarely will we send the dog off. We have over the years when I sent the dog off after a siege one day, a bloke was going to torch himself. And he decided he's going to run up the street. He ran from the stronghold, and I sent the dog in to bite. But we'd get the odd copper every now and again. The coppers would just keep running, trying to think they could outrun them. But generally speaking, the dog would win. So
yeah, it was just. I think we were we weren't trained. We were just told, if you hear me say police dog freeze, for Christ's sake, freeze.
Yeah.
We're like, yes, we will.
I think the first. I remember the first. I wasn't there for it, but the first Northern Territory police officer to be trained the dogs for was trained at the Queensland Police Academy. Pretty sure it was. I can't remember his name, but I never met. I met the bloke once, not many years ago. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there would have been, because the GP, I know that there was a lot. I know they went to Queensland to be trained, and I think I know that cohort. I think most of them have moved on. There might still be one or two, because it's going back a few years now. But yeah, you're right.
Why you never
the GP component? Yeah, the GP component was later in. I don't know whether they did it earlier and then abandoned it and then came back to it, because it's absolutely integral now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was. It grew and grew and grew, and it was a lot of my sort of Schultzy and my cohort that were those initial GP dog handlers, and there were a couple that came before that, and then now they're the senior guys now. So our cohort are sort of the leaders of the dog squad now up in the NT, and I just know the capability has expanded so much because it is just so unbelievably effective.
Yeah, they are incredible. It's, as I say, it's been such a wonderful career with everything we've done, and five dogs all up, and every single one of them was fantastic, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, what's some general working life of a dog? Obviously, they're restricted by age, but how long do you usually have them?
Usually about 5 years. So they probably start their career about 2 years of age, and we'd get then we'd change them over at about 8 years of age. So you get between 5 or 6 years out of them, and change up from there. But there might be sometimes, like for instance, my first dog, which I got, which was Buddy, he was probably 2.5, 3 years of age, and he died early. So he died after about 3 or 4 years service. And then I went on to Zed, and Zed failed me in a blue one day, so I had to get rid of him. So he only lasted probably 4 years. Then I got Vader, and Vader had already been with another handler, so Vader was probably 3. So I had him for about 6 years. So so it's not just you get a dog and you stay with it. It depends on what's happening with the dog's life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the big one here is obviously you've spoken about our experience, your experience going through your career and all the rest of it. We get a lot of people. Obviously, it's a very, very sought after role within the police force. It's extremely competitive to become a dog handler. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to not just join the police force in this day and age, but also has that ambition to be a dog handler?
Well, it's so important to keep really extremely fit. Set your sight on joining the dog squad and make sure that you do. You just concentrate on that. Definitely go down and see the staff from the dog squad, or the handlers. Do a bit of training with them. Let them know that you can handle the dog. Let them know that you can run tracks. Let them know that you can take a bite from the dog. Let them know the dog doesn't worry you too much. And then when it comes to live jobs, be prepared to follow the dog handler just to back him up, to make sure that they're perfectly all right. So do these little things to get used to it. Just having a love of dogs is not enough. And you've got to show a good work ethic because you do work by yourself. You've got yourself and you've got your dog. And that's all you do. So and it's quite an easy job to go and sit in the back and do nothing until you get a phone call from somebody. And, you may not get a phone call all shift. You may get half a dozen phone calls for the shift, but you may not get... So if you're not prepared to go out and chase work and drive around, you've got bugger all else to do. You haven't got paperwork. So you may as well be driving around and just, letting people know you're out there. So... but yeah, definitely get in amongst the dog handlers, learn the role, learn what they're doing, and that's probably the best way to get in there.
Yeah, definitely. Look, you mentioned you had a tactical background as well, so I know that the dogs work hand in glove with our TRG, which is the CERT equivalent in the Northern Territory. They also worked a lot with with us, so we were a property crime team basically. Dealing with that high volume property crime, detective units, but wearing t-shirts and jeans and fast-paced jobs. How did you find that? Obviously, like you just said, you are your own unit, but you work integrally with other forces. So, in your experience in Cairns, who did you work with the most?
Probably the property crime, which we have TCS here, Tactical Crime Squad. They were our most... they had a bit of a free rein to go out and catch people. We, unfortunately in Cairns, and I suppose it's right around Australia at the moment, we have a pretty bad lawful use of motor vehicle problem, dumping cars. And that was their main role, was to try and chase those up. So we'd just tag along with those and follow those. We used to do a lot of work with CERT as well, but they now have their own dogs. And they are very well trained and basically just for tactical work. If there's any tracking jobs to do, we generally come in and do that. We may come in as a backup with the tactical unit. But before that, early on, probably the first 10 years of my career, excuse me, the first 10 years of my career, we were it. So CERT, if there was a job CERT needed, they'd use us. Yeah, it's cough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mate, it's really interesting. And one of the things I want to, I suppose, narrow down on is, and you spoke earlier about like tracking people and all that sort of thing. What would, if you, like say, a missing person, you had the people that were obviously running away to try and commit suicide and all that sort of thing. Can you just go into the what you would do when you got to a scene, and then also talk about some of the cross
You get some
contamination you
water.
might
You
get.
get some water. Yep.
You might need some beer.
Okay, he's back. He's back. Let's go again.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to try and narrow down, like when you obviously get called and you get
Sorry,
to
Schultzy, I'm on mute. What we might do is have a pregnant pause so you can chop it out.
Okay. Yeah.
So you were talking about. Do you want to start that again? Do you want to tell us what you were doing when you find someone, and just start from that, and then we'll go from there.
Yep.
Righto. Go 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. So what I'd really want to narrow down on is when you get a call, like say for somebody that wants to go and commit suicide, or you're missing person, so on and so forth. What's the initial thing you do, and then what are the things that might cross contaminate, and how? Like I want to really narrow down on how, we obviously know how good the dogs are, but how much does cross contamination and that interrupt what you do?
Well, first thing when you get to a scene is you'd ask witnesses what they'd seen and where the person had run to, and then disregard everything they said, because you can just about guarantee that they've gone the other way. So then we'd if it's say a stolen car or a window, we'd work out exactly where the person had was last seen, and then we'd get the dog out who'd do a few circles around what they call casting. So the dog would do casting and go around, and then it'd take off in whichever direction, and you're basically on track from there. As with cross contamination, sometimes it may affect the dog, but generally speaking, keep in mind that we're working at 11, 12, 1, 2 a.m. in the mornings. We're not working during the day most of the time because too many people walking around and very difficult to track over there. Well, we do occasionally, stuff like that. So, if they're walking at 2 o'clock in the morning, generally speaking, if it's in suburbia, there's only one person who's walking along there. Mind you, the amount of times you're walking along, you see somebody walking their dog at 2 o'clock in the morning. What the fuck? Why are you walking your dog at 2 o'clock in the morning, but that happens. So, generally speaking, the dog would just stay on that single track and wouldn't worry too much about cross-contamination. There was a job up here recently where the dog handler was tracking from a house, from a break and enter, and old mate's running into the bush. He's tracked through. The dogs come out of the bush behind a police car that was a cordon, stuck on the cordon, and tracked right behind the police car into the bush and found the offender about 200 metres into the bush across the road. Old mate had come out, seen the police car, and ducked down and stuck behind the police car and ran across the road. So, and the dog these police uniform staff didn't see them. So, that's how amazing they are. They just keep tracking, so, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're an incredible resource, and I think it's really important for the public to understand just how effective they are. And the general public, they love police dogs more than they love us. So it was, the death of a police dog often got more bloody, it got media attention as well, and there was an outpouring of grief when a police dog obviously had died or something similar.
Yeah.
But
I was just on that. I with my last police dog here. Because I'd spent so long in here, and the dog squad in Cairns has got a fantastic reputation, and the bloke who took over from me is continuing that reputation, catching people hand over fist. But we did all the social media thing with the dogs. and the local Lions Club here. When I lost my last dog, which was police dog Axel, who died of cancer, the Lions Club got hold of it, and they built a statue. So we've got a statue of the police dog here in Cairns, and we set up a memorial for the police dogs and everything. So that's just how much they are respected and liked within the community here. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, and I think it's universal. The Northern Territory is the same. They take the dogs in all the time into the local radio networks and have them televised, and the dogs are always super popular. Whenever the pups came out with the little L plates, police little kid on with the L plate on the side to socialise the dogs, they just loved them, and we used to love it too. There was nothing better during COVID. I remember the first time that we were really kicking off in there, that Darwin was having problems and we were locking down, and there was a high stress in the incident management team within there, and all of a sudden 3 little German Shepherd pups turned up with little L plates on them, and it just raised the morale of the joint. It was fantastic, and they were super friendly, little curious little fellas. They'd rip your arms off now. They were super curious. And so we loved it,
and they are that extra use of force. So all the high risk jobs they go to, which is they can be equivalent to another 5 or 6 coppers. I did a job fairly recently, or a couple of years back now. It came back as the most wanted man in Australia. Was hiding up here at a little town up in North Queensland. He'd murdered a young girl in 1989 or around there, 1986 or something like that. And then he did his time. He did 15 years for life. And then when he got out, he got tied up in the drug scene, and he eventually was on the run for 12 years. And we obviously got called to that one, and we located him hiding in the house, which was a really good thing, because using that extra use of force is something that it brings a good feeling for the whole crew to think the dog's there. You know what I mean? The dog's there. So it's just such a great little weapon to have.
Well, I think that's one of the important things to talk about is also presence with the dog. Damo and I have spoken extensively, and I can't remember the dog's name. He was a violent, very, very aggressive dog. But Viper, there. And I'll tell you what, I've had him in an incident where we're surrounded by 100 people and nobody is game to come close just because we have that dog barking.
And you're talking about the communities in that case? Yeah, and we were always flying up the community. As soon as shit went down at communities, we were the first up there. And you tend to find they went straight back inside once the dog arrives, we were just, in recent years, they seem to have not using us anymore, whether it's political correctness or what it is, but I went up there probably a dozen times over my career, and not once did I have a bite up there. It was just, the presence was just enough to say, okay, well, let's settle down. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And you've segued beautifully to what I wanted to talk about, was that the fact that we spoke about presence earlier, and people say, those who are against it would say that a police dog is such a high level use of force, how dare you do that sort of thing? It's like, well, actually, they're a huge deterrent. And if the dog wasn't there, the level of force that human police would use against the offender would have been very high anyway. So the sheer presence of a police dog quite often drastically reduced the use of force.
Yeah, well, those communities, and you wonder why more people aren't shot up in those places, because they put up with a whole lot of stuff that if you saw in the middle of Sydney, you saw in the middle of Brisbane, the first thing would be the firearm, because there are bashed up police cars, there's spears getting thrown through the thing. It's just incredible. And not degrading any police or anything like that, but I often look at these Sydney riots, the Cronulla riots, and I go, wow, mate, in those communities that happens time after time. That happens every month, every week sometimes. It's just 200, 300, 400 people just brawling in the street, and you've got five or six coppers that are up there trying to control it, and they don't just ring people to get somebody up there straight away. They put up with a whole lot before they call for backup. So they can generally speak. But But just looking at those riots and stuff like that's just something. It's almost like it's out of sight, out of mind, which is a real shame because people are going to get hurt, and it's only a matter of time before something happens up there, in the places like that.
Well, it's not a matter of time. It happens all the time. People do die in those quite regularly. But like you say, out of sight, out of mind. Brood Island, it was the ones, I mean, there have been plenty. Port Keats or Wadair is the name of the community. This is Northern Territory I'm speaking of now. I understand that North Queensland has the same problems. Northern Western Australia has the same problems. These people do die. People are seriously injured, maimed and disabled on a monthly basis in these places. But it doesn't receive, there'd be a stabbing in Melbourne that'll make national news, a stabbing in Sydney. And it should make national news, but it happens more regularly in these communities up there. And relating it back to dogs, and I can tell you that because I've seen it I've smelt it, I've felt the hotness in the air as it's happening. The presence of a dog, just like you just said, it just crushes it. A dog comes out and starts barking properly, and people go, okay, time to go home now.
A number of years ago, in one of the major magazines, it said that what's the highest murder per capita in the world, which city, and unfortunately, it's one of these communities. I'm not going to say which community, but it's in Australia. One of those communities that had that tag, and you're going, you're joking. In a place like Australia, that had the highest. It's terrible, but it is what it is, and out of sight, out of mind. It's and it's funny, and I don't want to get on my high horse with this type of stuff, but I look back at people protesting about police shootings and stuff like that. But you look at the amount of people who die through medical dramas and from operations and stuff like that. You don't hear people protesting about anything like that. A policeman goes and shoots somebody, and then all of a sudden everybody's up in arms saying what's going on here. It's a real shame that we've come to that. The war on the police has got to stop, I think, and because at the end of the day, we're that fine thin blue line, and that's what it is that we need to help out. But the things that are happening with it, I just look and I go, sometimes I just say, thank goodness I'm not involved in that anymore, because it's a matter of time. It was going to happen to me. I was going to lose my temper one day, or get in a situation where I had to pull my firearm out and shoot somebody. It's just so accountable, and the police don't go to work to do that. They're generally, especially these days, they're so educated and they're just smart people, and to see how they're dragged through what's happening is really disappointing and upsetting to me. So
yeah, we hear you there. We couldn't agree more. Actually, just the last episode we spoke about police being the hard stop, and people have to remember that. You might have told the school principal to go to buggery, whatever. I think I said it last week, but when the police turn up, the answer's no, and the answer is no, and we're going to physically stop you from doing that, up to and including taking your life if you're threatening the lives of others. It's simple as that. It's the hard stop,
which nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to. Nobody goes to work to do that. But,
absolutely not. No, God, no.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm loving is we've gone through and really you've shown that the training and what you've done and the capabilities, and everyone has a good understanding of that. What I love about dogs is they're not just used in policing, and you're obviously out of the police force now, or out of the police service now, but still working with dogs. Do you want to give us a rundown on that?
Yeah, well, I just started my own little business, of course, and but I just train people's dogs, a few security dogs and stuff like that. Also train for other government organisations that are around. So, who because of my experience with dogs and the amount of training I've done with them, they trust me to develop these dogs for military, security, and other state government organisations. So it's a pretty good little gig. I enjoy doing that. I'm not part of those organisations. I don't miss all the politics. That's what it goes with it. I can just run off with my dog and do whatever training I need to do. So, yeah, it's a great little gig. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're very lucky in that regard. I like to think that I've taken a lot of skills. Everyone takes skills that you've had in the police force out. I now train and assess, and I'm working the fire field as a volunteer fire, but it helped my career as a trainer. So I love that you always get to take the skill sets from the police force. That and we've spoken about that before. There's so many skills that you learn in the police that you at the time might think won't apply to civilian world, but they roll over beautifully. And I think, your calmness under pressure, all that kind of thing, it just rolls over so well. What do you got there, Schultzy?
Even as a dog handler, because when I was coming up to retirement, a mate of mine who's a security officer in Canberra rang and said, "What are you doing after you finish, police work?" And I went, "I don't know yet." He says, "We'll do some consulting work." I said, "What type of consulting work?" He said, "Well, you could start off in Cambodia." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Come over, train dogs in Cambodia." So I managed to get over there and train with a company called CMAC, which is the Cairns Mine Action Centre. They're responsible for clearing mines that were left during the Vietnam War in Cambodia, which is still there. I think when the war finished there, 72, 76, anyway, around there. And so there's all these landmines around there. I was lucky enough because they realised my tactical background, my GP work, so they got me to train with the GP dogs. But and that's given me an opportunity. Just dog handling, all things. You think, well, dog handling gets you nowhere, but it does. Even as a dog handler, I've got these opportunities overseas, and I've got 2 or 3 more this year that I've been invited to go and do. So the jobs are out there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually really incredible. And look, you've obviously gained a massive amount of knowledge in this, and it's good to see that's actually transferred after you finish in the police. One thing I wouldn't mind dragging you away from, and one of the conversations you and I had was actually also about people getting recognition for the great work they do in the police, like medals and all that sort of thing. And I know there's a lot of political correctness about, police being in danger and all that sort of thing. However, we are always in danger when we do these jobs, especially the good police. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, if you're happy?
Yeah, by all means, yeah. Prior to leaving the QPS, probably about 3 years before I left, I was standing in the hallway beside the water tank, and I heard these 2 coppers talking about one of my staff and a job he did. And I went back and had a look at the job, and I had 4 or 5 staff, and this job was an amazing job. And I went, I didn't even know that happened. And I thought, well, if that's happening to me, if I can't keep track of my 4 staff, how is an inspector going to keep track of 100 staff, 150 staff? It's just impossible. So I went. I decided I'd start up a project called Project Recognise, trying to recognise staff. We have in Queensland, or they do have in Queensland, professional practice managers who investigate every single complaint that comes through. I think in Cairns we've got 2. But my argument was there's nobody that is investigating the people who do good work, right, really good work. So what I did was I went to one of my bosses and I said, I'm going to set up this one called Project Recognise. I'm going to set up an email address. Anybody who does good work, they can send it through to me. I will ensure that a good work email, what we call development performance up here, DAP, development performance assessment, and we can put that on there to say they've done great work. That goes on to their record to say, hey, you've done a great job. My thinking was, if someone's prepared to send an email to me to say, hey, this is a good work, then it deserves at least, the very least, a DAP, a development performance entry, so it's on their record. First one I went to, they come back and said, no, we've got too many systems as it is. And I said, well, to be quite honest, with 2 years to go, I'm going to do it anyway. So I just went. Yeah. I just rung the tech section. I said, I want this email address set up. They said, yep, no worries at all. And I also got flooded with them. I think I did something like 230 DAPs in the first 12 months. So this is good work that would not got to recognise. I'm not saying, oh, woe is me, how fantastic am I? I'm saying it because this work was going unnoticed. And I was happy to sit there all day and just type out and say, and it may be something that, somebody talked really nicely to, an old lady got broken into, and the men or women went down and spoke to this lady, and she was so nice. She sent a nice letter in to say, it might be something like that, or it might be something like, a bloke pulls out a shotgun, and this is a true story. 2 coppers just at a suburb outside of Cairns, follow a vehicle, they're driving recklessly, as he's hopped out, as they pulled him up, he's hopped out with his loaded shotgun. He's aimed at him, cocked it, and then he's run off into the bush or into the suburbia, and off they've gone chasing him. I mean, who does that type of stuff? So jobs that really simple ones, or through to that. My first stage would be to do a development performance assessment, and if I thought it had to go further, I'd escalate it and put a report in to the Honours and Awards section to recognise them for something better. So we called it Project Recognise, and we were just it was really, really good concept. In fact, it got mentioned in the 100-day review, which the QPS did recently, saying that we got it up here together. I just didn't have it set up perfectly the way I wanted to before I left, but it wasn't too bad, because a lot of people are missing out on these awards, and I've got medals and I wear them proudly, every single one, even the one they call the Cleaners Medal, which means 10 years service. Because what happens at the QPS, if you've done 10 years service, diligent, good and ethical service, you get a medal to say you've done it, and the cleaners get it because they're part of the QPS. I've got no issue with that, absolutely. Admittedly, we go out, but that's our choice. I mean, if I want to be a cleaner, I'll be a cleaner. I want to hop in that police car and go. So I wear that one with pride, as I do with the other medals that I've got, because I think that's just so important, that recognition, because there's a lot of people out there who don't have those medals for recognition. And unfortunately, I think that falls back on, and this is to any of the senior staff that are listening, that just because you in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s didn't get an award for what you've done, that's no reason to knock back awards for other people just because you've done it and missed out, and that came out of a little bit that I found, that there was a lot of jealousy tied up with the awards, which is a real shame. And we've also got to move with the times, because these people, and no disrespect to the new coppers, but these people did come through with everybody's a winner. Everybody gets something at the end of whatever. Who cares? That's fine. If it makes them happy, then that's what we do. We reward them for what they're doing. If they go and do a great job, let's just recognise them, get them rewarded, and give them a medal to pin on their chest, or at least a good work email, because it just lifts the whole morale of the whole coppers up. Oh, yeah, I got this type of stuff. And at the end of the day, there's some really brave work to be done out there. Just gets straight over the top of the people. I've got a bravery medal and a commendation for brave conduct from the Governor General. But those two jobs would probably they make the top, they make the top 10 definitely, and maybe the top 5. So there's other jobs in there that I've done that I haven't been recognised for. I'm not too concerned about it, but it just goes to show, if I've got those type of awards, then what are other people missing out? I'm one dog handler, or I'm one copper out of 10,000 or 15,000 in the whole state of Queensland, and that's me, and I'm getting I've got those. It must, most operational police must be getting the same stuff, but it's just getting passed over, which is a real shame.
Yeah. Mate. Sorry, Damon.
No, you're right, mate. Yeah, you go, Schultzy.
Like I got one basically later on in my career, and it was funny because it was kind of a big thing. It was given to me by Assistant Commissioner, and she said, this is a pretty big award, and they gave me a medal for going out. This is under the intervention, and I went out to a station which was probably almost quite a station in the Northern Territory, and I got a medal for it. And I'm sitting there going, and I've turned around, I said, "This is bullshit." She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, the fact is," I said, I've had knives, I've been threatened with knives, I've been threatened with this, that, and the other, and I get an award for going out, and fair enough, rightly so, I got an award, but you haven't recognised everything else that I've actually achieved, where I did in the line of danger, and even the medal, and those people say wear it, and I'm going, yeah, but I did so much more than that.
But Schultzy, if you look at it this way, that medal that you got there is for all those jobs you've done. That medal there is the one that you got, that you recognise. That's all those jobs, all those getting knives thrown at you, all that type of stuff. Wear that one and just go, bang, that's for all. Who cares what it's? I mean, we got the COVID medal now, the National Emergency Medal, whatever it is. So if you work through COVID, and you know what I did? I sat in a motel room I was injured, so I was off the road. I sat in the motel room and watched Netflix, 14-hour shifts, get 6 hours overtime a day. I think my pay that year was over $200,000 for the year because of all the overtime they were paying, and I got a medal for that. Okay, I'll wear it because it was presented to us. I didn't do anything brave. I looked at my dog handlers every night and they're going through the bush chasing people, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? I should be sitting here all the time. So we all get those awards somewhere along the line. But I look at that one and I go, well, I was also the first copper to go to Cardinal Cyclone Yazi. I looked after that. That was massive. That was a massive job. We got nothing out of that. We got a letter from the assistant commissioner. The staff that worked with me down there deserved the medal. They were tramping across electrical wires. They were sleeping rough in bloody in water, quarter inch, because there was quarter inch water. They were just searching every single house looking for dead people for a week, and they got nothing out of that because it didn't qualify for the 14 days continuous service or extraordinary service or something like that. But that COVID medal now comes back and I go, I did Cyclone Yazi, that's what that's for. You know what I mean? Does that make sense to you? Yeah, and that's why we're it.
And I agree there as well. I think back, and I've often thought about that. No, same thing, I never really cared. Like, medals are okay, got a medal, yeah, cool. But the more I think about it, and my kids were the ones who made me sort of wear my medals, because I've got medals, and I don't have bravery medals, I've got service medals. But the kids were really proud of it. And they sort of like, that's because you're a policeman, Dad. Like, you were a policeman back in the Northern Territory. You should wear that on Anzac Day. And I do. And I think the reason I love it so much is because the kids are proud. And then when I think about it, it's like we did do some incredibly wild shit. Yeah. There were times where I look at some of the, and you don't compare things. It's not that. I read bravery medals that people get, and I go, shit, I used to see stuff like that happen all the time. Like, I've seen people do things that and way crazier, and I'm not taking anything away from them. And I think they deserve their medal. But I just sit back and go, yeah, well, that does go unrecognised. And I've made this point previously on the podcast where, and you made it beautifully, that two people in Cairns whose job's to get people in trouble, and they're hunting for it. They're just looking for it everywhere. We were getting dip sampling of body-worn camera to find people acting inappropriately. Well, how about your dip sample Promise jobs? And Promise was our computer system at the time. It's changed now, but they would go through the computer system and find extraordinary work and actually hand out a few more commendations and things like that.
And just on a caveat to that as well, with regards to the bosses and that type of stuff, and I don't want to be disrespectful to them because they have so much to do. They got all the rosters, they got leave, they got staff performance, they got all this type of stuff, and the last thing they want to do is the last thing they get to do is do that recognition stuff. They don't look up the good work. So there's just so much they got on top. I tried to push that forward and say, well, this is the first thing we should be looking at, okay? Because that builds morale and that makes everybody together. And that's why we've got the PPMs, because if it gets out to the that's why we've got these people who investigate the bad things we've done, because that gets on the public. It's the image that goes, and we want to. But on the flip side, you see a copper do something really, really good, something really, really brave. That's a great thing for the image. So let's get that out there. But that's not put out there enough. They don't get on the front foot enough. I don't think they get on the front foot enough, and they need to just go. Okay, well look at what we've done here.
I must admit, I'm seeing more and more of that in social media these days. It's not necessarily like a media release. They'll just release footage of something. I know Queensland are doing it really well, and I know the Northern Territory are doing it really well now. You'll see just a video come up. It'll be body-worn camera, and a lot of it is dog handlers, and a lot of it is Trident, and it's all the sexy stuff. It's chasing people down, running out of stolen cars, stuff like that. They'll show the pursuit happening, then they'll show the apprehension. But that never happened when I was there, and we were doing that all the time. And I'm really, really happy now that is happening. There are people actually showing the public what occurs. So I'm certainly not a negative person when it comes to the police force. I think when I left, it hadn't changed. It hadn't turned that page yet. Mm-hmm. And I think it has a bit. But yeah, that actual recognition. I mean, talking about another thing, I got an assistant commissioner's commendation for sitting in in a coronial inquest and being nice to people. I was like, really? I knew other people who got assistant commissioners' commendations for doing CPR, and it's like, well, I did it 23 times, but maybe I never saved anybody, so that's the problem.
So I've actually taken that out into the civilian world now. So we have projectrecognize.com.au. So hopefully we can that's designed for people, because people don't really understand the Governor General's website with how to nominate people because you can go straight on the Governor General website and just nominate stuff. And a couple of times, and I know I've gotten in trouble for it, but I just bypassed our own service because it just took so damn long to go through. And they don't just give out the Governor General's office don't just give out these medals for anything. They really research it. They go right in and just make sure that everything's, T's across, I's dotted, and stuff like that. They do a really good investigation. I just think that we need to really recognise some of the jobs that we're doing, and we need to push it.
It really came home to me, and like early on in my career, I was in charge of the family and domestic violence. And anyway, a copper, general duties down the police station, referred somebody to me in relation to domestic violence. This person was very apprehensive about talking to police, and it was basically her approach to that allowed us to actually do our job. And I remember this is back in the day, and I wrote an email to my supervisor saying this needs to go on her record. She did an absolutely outstanding job doing this, and I know like she still holds that email. But it's not talking about that incident, about me doing what I did, but how much does that help cops on the road to then do a better job because they get recognised for it? And this meant, for that simple email meant so much to her. Imagine how much recognition actually from the police force would actually get to people doing a better job.
Oh, exactly. And that's where that's what I tried to start, and hopefully, I mean, I've lost pretty much contact with most of what's happening in there through my own choice, which is just busy. And I just hope that they continue it on and just keep it, and it spreads around. It was mentioned in that 100 review, as I said, and it's something that we're going to bring statewide. So if that was my legacy, that was all I left the QPS with, that I'd be happy with that. I think that's just, if we can really focus on rewarding these people for some of the fantastic work. Because every time you put on that uniform, every time you open that police car, mate, you're just you're putting your life on the line. You are, no matter what, and that deserves bravery. Yeah, that deserves a medal just in itself. So wear that medal.
I'd actually, you've actually changed my mind there, because I was just one of these people that sat there and go, no, I didn't really deserve that. But, And
then you look back and you think of what you've done, and I look back at my scrapbook and I go, wow, I was involved in that, and so there's just a whole lot of stuff that you actually do that's why you wear them.
Yeah.
Now, Dave, we do have something really before we finish up. There's a very, very serious.
Yeah.
I need to ask you a little bit deep, a little bit personal.
It's probably the most serious thing.
This is very, very serious. Yeah. Throughout your career, can you think of something that occurred where the only punishment that could be issued to somebody is a carton of the week?
Gosh, there's a whole lot of those, I think.
I knew you'd say that.
Is that me or is that anybody?
That's completely up to you. It's something that, and it's normally to do with someone stuffed up massively, not criminally, but stuffed up where it's like, you know what, buy beer for that.
I'll tell you a bit of a story. I don't know whether this is true. It's true. I don't know if it's true. I'm not going to tell you where it is. But apparently, because the dogs, of course, go off loud noises, set them, loud noises, they start barking and carrying on, if they are. So, a certain person was at a rodeo in Queensland, or it might have been New South Wales, but Queensland, let's say Queensland, and he's letting his dog out to go for a piss. Just at the same time, one of the riders fall off the bull. Of course, the old radio clown jumps in to try and solve the problem and get the bull away from the rider, and he's yelling at the top of his voice. The old dog going out for a piss hears the old radio clown yelling and goes, "He's mine." So after the radio clown goes, so after the dog goes chasing the radio clown, of course the crowd thinks it's a part of the show. So they're all up, applaud, go, clapping. The old radio clown sees the dog coming and goes, "I'm out of here, fuck this," runs off. The handler's behind going, "No, stop, come back, yelling. Everybody's up cheering. The dog's going beeline over the top of the fence. Radio clown ain't fast enough, so the old dog takes out the radio clown, and the crowd's up there clapping their hands. I think it's a great thing. So I think that probably deserves a card.
I think that might be the best carton of the week I've ever heard. I don't think I can top that. There's no way.
You can just imagine the crowd thinking it was just a big game. But anyway. Rumour has it anyway. Rumour has it.
Rumour has it. Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic fictional story. I think that's absolutely magic. Yeah. Sensational. That's the best, Schultzy. I can't think of better than that.
Of course, I've never... I got one story there in the book there with regards where because you talk about how the coppers are scared of police dogs themselves. Everybody is. So we turned up to this house one day, covertly, of course. There's an old mate in the thing, returned to prison warrant in the house. And the idea was the coppers jump over the fence, put a cordon in place. I harness the dog up, throw him over, go to the front door, and then go put the dog into search. So I turn up there. 10 coppers jump in, surround the house. I harness the dog up, throw the dog over, pull the harness back so I can climb the fence, and the harness has come back. And I've got the harness in my hands. I've gone, oh, fuck. And the dog has spied a chicken inside this yard. And so all of a sudden, the dogs started chasing the chicken, and these coppers, one by one, are just jumping up and over the fence as quick as they could. Here I am, jumping over the fence. I'm chasing this bloody dog around, trying to get the dog back on. Wait, leave it, wait to come, wait to, that type of stuff. Yelling at the dog to come back, and the dog wasn't come back, mate. He was just one of that chicken. He was chasing the chicken around. So, of course, this is a covert job. So old mate inside's probably looking out the window going, what the fuck is this? It's a bit of a comedy. All the coppers are sitting on top of this fence, and I'm running around chasing this bloody dog. So I eventually outsmarted the dog, went back the other way, and the chicken ran into this bloody bush, and I grabbed my dog and went back and all embarrassed. And anyway, just while I did find the bloke, then I put the dog in and found him. So I suppose I like that carton as well.
That's a carton. It still is. Yeah, that's I have another funny one. It's a dog handler story. Drug detection dog at Darwin Airport. We used to work really closely with them when I was in the drug squad. And we used to run through the flights that used to go to Groot Island, those external, well-known for cannabis. They used to take kilos and kilos of cannabis out on those flights. Anyway, we'd done searches through. We'd had a number of seizures. A couple of flights had gone. Another flight's come through. Everyone's sitting in the waiting area at the gate, about to board the aircraft. And the dog just obviously had an accident and's let out one of the biggest dog turds I've ever seen in my life, just right in the middle of the airport. And it smelt so bad that a couple of the ladies who were waiting to board the aircraft actually threw up. It was so terrible. And I remember I won't say his name, the dog handler involved is then down on trying to clean up this dog shit. And we're like, mate, I suppose you get all the glory of being the dog handler, but at the end of the day, he's still got to clean up the shit in the middle of the airport. So, yeah, it's obviously at the end of the day, you can't work with children or animals.
No, exactly. It's happened quite often, that type of stuff. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, they were used to it. I wasn't. I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
We're being all serious, but it was bloody funny. We were laughing out loud, and everyone saw the funny side.
Except the dog handler, he was a bit embarrassed, I could guarantee.
Yeah, he was a bit. Yeah, he was. He was he's a very seasoned, highly respected copper, and when I say highly respected, I mean it. He was very, very highly respected. Yeah. And there, the poor bugger's down. We almost felt like going and helping him because it was like, you can't let him do that. Bloody overkill. It's his dog.
I bet you never remind him of it either.
Yeah, no, he got into it.
I bet you don't remind him of it. or back it in?
Oh, he's I think he's retired now. He was a fairly senior dude, extraordinarily fit.
Yeah,
Been in
yeah,
a number of different police
yeah,
forces, and yeah, he was excellent. But yeah,
yeah,
I think we reminded him occasionally, but we kind of held him in pretty high regard anyway.
yeah,
So it was,
yeah. Excellent.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
Hey,
David, it's been a bloody pleasure, mate. It's been absolutely brilliant. Schultzy, what do you got?
yeah, mate. Dave, I just want to promote your book a bit. I haven't read it yet. Thank you very much for sending it through. I'm very looking forward to. But like we said in the last episode, I've received 3 in the last fortnight, and I'm not the fastest reader like my beautiful partner. But mate, do you want to spruik the book a bit and actually tell people where they can get it and some of the stories they might encounter?
Yeah, well, ever since I joined the Coppers, 89, I used to, every time I went to a job, a main job, I'd jot down what I had, or if there was a newspaper clipping, I'd take it out. And when I got towards 5 or 6 years out from the end of my career, I put it all together because I thought, well, the kids know I'm a dog handler. They know that I know what I do, but do they really know what I do? So I put it all down to work, how I was feeling, jobs running through where the dog had darted into the bush, which we call a hotspot, knowing that somebody had been hiding there, and then there'd be nobody in there, so we'd track, and you go back later, you find a firearm there, and you speak to the people and say, yeah, we had that gun trained on you. Things like that you don't really know that happens with the coppers, with the dog handler. So I put all these stories together, and I sent it into a publisher, which is Big Sky Publishing, and they took it. They got back to me in a couple of weeks and said they loved the book. So that's where it was, and it's a bit. My whole ambition to write the book was, one, to see it on the shelves, not to make money out of it, but to see it on the shelves. And now I do that to go to Melbourne, Sydney, and stuff like that, and on the shelves down there in Perth and Hobart and stuff like that. So that was one thing. But also, number two, to make sure that people understood what police dog handling was about, and just how many people. And I'm one dog handler. I've got these stories to tell, and some of them are amazing. Some of them you just go, well, no way in the world. But the good thing is I've got newspaper clippings or reports to back up my stories. Every single one of those stories has got backup. So to see that, and that's just me. So what these dog handlers are facing every night of their lives is just amazing, So I wanted people to understand that. And that's probably the feedback I got from the book, mostly from people to say, gosh, I want to be a dog handler, but I can't believe that's actually what you did. They thought it was going out and playing with dogs all life and chasing stuff. But it actually puts your life in danger quite a fair bit, and again, tactic withdrawal, you go, blokes running there with a knife or into the cane paddock with a firearm, and you just get your dog out, so you go chasing him, follow him. You go, I look back now and I go, what an idiot, how stupid are you to think you did it? You just did it. It was just something you did. So those stories are in there, and I think that's the good thing about it. It's been going fairly well. I'm really happy with it, and it's called Vader, which was one of my police dogs, my third police dog. So, and he had quite a extraordinary career. So, but it's good.
It's important that gets recognised, mate. Where can people get a hold of that book?
Well, any of the QBD stores or Dimmicks, any of the main bookstores, online with Amazon and all those online bookshops, if that's what you call them. I don't know. It's on 60, so I don't understand all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's out there, and it's worth. I don't make much money out of it, to be quite honest. It's just nice knowing it's out there and people are understanding actually what we go through. So.
Yeah, mate, I can understand that because, part of the reason a lot of people wanted me to write a book, but I started a podcast instead with my best mate from the police. So, well, all my stories, but it's great to get, your stories out there as well because, that's what policing is, isn't it? It's not just Ben and Damo. It's thousands of coppers out there doing an extraordinary job every day, and they need to be recognised.
It's just incredible. Yeah. The job is so much harder than when I joined. And even harder, I think it gets harder and harder every time. The accountability, the eyes that are on you all the time, not just the accountability to the public, but the accountability to the bosses, accountability to the government. It's just so difficult. And it's almost like if a government organisation messes up or something happens, it usually comes back to the police, or it's the police's fault. But in my experience, the police is such a professional organisation that much as we bag it and we give it, we don't like this TJF and all that type of bullshit that goes on. I love my career. The QPS was fantastic to me. It gave me great pay, gave me great super, gave me a great job. And to be honest, the bosses were just, I had some of the best bosses in the world. They were just fantastic. And, but it's just so very difficult a lot more difficult than when I joined. And if I was giving advice to people to join, would I suggest joining? Yes, I would. As I say, it's a different job to join. But, you get that adrenaline rush all the time. It's such a noble career, such a good thing to do. So, and anybody who's interested in a career, just get in and sign in and get up and do it, even if it's for a few years. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Excellent advice, Dave, and I couldn't agree more. It was, we can look back and fault find, but yeah, on the whole, there's a reason we do this podcast is because we loved it. We absolutely loved it.
Yeah, exactly.
There were bad times and good times. It's some of the most amazing experiences of my life. Well, all of the most amazing experiences of my life in the police force.
Yeah, and stories, as I say, some of these stories you look at and you just you can't believe you go, no way in the world, but I've got everything to back it up. I go, well, that actually happened, and
Well, you can't bullshit. That's the thing we found out real early, and we always knew that. But we can't make this shit up. It's in the public eye, and there are literally records of it occurring. So if someone wanted to find out, they could search it and find the job.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
You can't sit here and talk shit. You've got we in our case have 1,500 fact checkers. So everything we say, and that's what we've said before. If anything, we've talked it down.
Yep. So, as coppers do. Coppers talk it down all the time. And just going back really quickly back to that Project Recognise, what I did was I said to the people in the car, if you don't want to recognise yourself for something, which coppers don't, they don't want to do it. Don't let your mate miss out. Nominate him, and they do that knowing fully well that they would receive some recognition as well. You know what I mean? So I made an easy way out. I go, well, I was at that job. Damo and I had a job. I don't want to make myself to be a hero, but Damo was a hero. Wow, there you go. I'll put a report about Damo, and he gets rewarded. But whoever looks at that recognise information goes, oh, but Dave was there as well. Oh, they both get recognised. So they don't want to put themselves in, but they do want to put themselves in, but they don't want to, to keep it just embarrassing. So so that's why they put their mate in, knowing full well they'll get recognised, which I think is a fantastic thing. It doesn't worry me how they get recognised. I don't care what happens as long as they get recognised. It's the main thing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Dave. Absolutely. That's great. Well, what do you reckon, Schultzy? That's one for the books. I think that was excellent. So, Dave, we really appreciate you coming along, mate. It's been really good.
It has.
Excellent experience.
Yeah, mate. It's absolutely, as you can see, Damo and I were completely enthralled with what you had to say. So, really good, mate. What I'll get you to stay on for a bit once we finish up and we can have a chat. But, mate, thank you again so much for coming on.
And just last message to all those coppers out there serving, don't get complacent. Just stay safe, stay safe. And we're thinking of you and really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks, boys.
Yeah, couldn't say it better.
Absolutely outstanding. All right, we'll see you all next week.
All the best.